Good morning. We're learning as a schus for Refuah Shlema for Ilana Chaya Baserach. We're on Daf Lamed Beis Amid Aleph. We had brought on Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis at the bottom, brought from Rav Huna, that he saw that he made his parshias of his mezuzah stumas. That means that there was no gap between one parsha and the next. Then we brought the Rav Shimon Elazar on the top of the Amid. We saw that Rav Shimon Elazar says that they're made psuchais, and Rebbe said because it's not smuchas in the Torah, and we pass from a Rav that halacha is like Rav Shimon Elazar. But Rav Huna was the Rebbe of Rav, so how could he pass and connect his Rebbe? So we said that which he had said a number of halachas there. That which he paskin like Rosh Shimon Elazar is on the din of revach. That you have to have a margin, not on the din of psuchos. Ein chanami the halacha is like Rav Huna that it's stumas. Zok tomorrow. So we are up to about 2/3 of the way down. About 5 lines up from the bottom of the narrow lines. Nacha Yitzchak Amma. Mitzvah lasoisun stumas. He says a different teretz. It's not that it's going on Revach. He says that it's a mitzvah to do it stumas. That the ideal is to do it stumas, like Rav Huna said. Bi'avinu psuchos shapidami. But Rebbe said that since the parshias are far away from each other in the Sefer Torah, that tells you that b'di'evad you could also do them psuchos. Leim mesayeh leim if yotze boy Sefer Torah.
Yeah.
My psuchos, I'm sure my psuchos.
Right, that you didn't do that part.
I didn't do that part.
No.
Yes, that means that which Rav Shimon Elazar said. Psuchos means even psuchos. That it did not. That b'di'evad you can do it psuchos, but ideally you should do it stumas. Leim mesayeh. I'll bring you a raya. Ki yotze boy. Similar to the Sefer Torah Shabbalah, Utfilin Shabbalah, a Sefer Torah or Tefillin that got rubbed out, it's worn out, so it's no longer able to be used in its primary purpose. Ain't oisim mehem mezuzah. You can't use the rubbed out parts. You can't take out the parsha of the mezuzah from either Tefillin or from the Sefer Torah. You can't make something that was once a Sefer Torah and repurpose it as a mezuzah or a tefillin and make it into mezuzah. Hamaridin oisid, but it's mashma. If not for this problem that it's disrespectful to take something that was a sefer Torah tefillin and make it into mezuzah, you could do so. Amai hachas tumas v'hacha psuchos. We just said that the mezuzah in the sefer Torah, the parsha of those parshas, the two parshas of mezuzah, Shema and V'hayim Shemaya, are both stumas in the Sefer Torah. V'hacha psuchos. But in the mezuzah, they're separated. And for the Gemara, Dilma la hashlim, maybe when it says you use the Sefer Torah, you use the parsha of the Sefer Torah or the Tefillin, it means to be mashlim. So let's see how Rashi and Taisus, let's look at the Taisus, because Taisus says over Rashi, Doma lahashlim, Pirish b'kudrishim, chashim mezuzah shita achas. If the mezuzah was just missing one line, ilav the emaridin hayu noitlin shita achas misefer Torah v'toifer mezuzah. He says lahashlim means we're not taking the whole parsha, we're just taking one line that we would cut out from the Sefer Torah or the Tefillin and put it into the mezuzah. You can only write a Sefer mezuzah on a single piece of leather. That's talking about where you didn't sew it in. You can't have two separate pieces, but if you sew them together, it's okay. Another way of explaining lahashim going to parsha Shema b'seif Amid, v'ayze parshas v'hayim shemaya begil shlamata. We're talking about where you had written already You'd written already the Parsha Shema, and you add on a separate Parsha after it. A Parsha Vayim Shemaya B'tchilas Am V'Hoysa Shema B'Gilin Shalamayla. Or you write it, or you put it into before if there was a margin on top. In any case, so that's the way we would answer why you could have um, it's talking about to take the actual piece of the tefillin and the mezuzah, the ones that are from the missing part, and sticking it in into the one that the mezuzah that was missing. So tomorrow. So tomorrow, I'll ask you another question on this idea that you're going to take your tefillin, your Sefer Torah, or your tefillin, and make it into a mezuzah. Hameridin oisin. If not for the fact that it's meridin, you could do it. Amai hachastumas. I'm sorry. Hameridin oisin v'atanya halacha l'meshvisina tefillin ala klaf and mezuzah al duchtustus. The halacha l'meshvisina is that tefillin is written on the klaf, which is the outer. There are two levels, there are two layers of skin on an animal. The outer part is called the klaf, and the inside part is called the duchsustus. So the tefillin is made on the outer part of the skin, and the mezuzah is made on the inner part. And in addition, the klaf b'mak and basar, the klaf, the way Rashi understands it, is you write on the side that faces toward the animal, the side where the basar of the animal is, the chustus makom seir, and the zuchstus you write it on the outer portion, the part that's toward the hair. It's just a way of saying the inner facing or the outer facing part of that skin. So in two ways the parchment that you use for a mezuzah is different than that of Sefer Torah and Tefillin. That Sefer Torah and Tefillin is done toward, or say Tefillin. I don't know about the Sefer Torah. A Tefillin is done on the outer part of the skin, the upper layer, and it's facing toward the inside. And the duchsustus, the mezuzah is done on the inner part of the skin facing toward the outside. So mitzvah. That which we say that the tefillin and mezuzah are made on that particular part of the skin facing that direction is only lechatchila, but b'diavad it could really be, you could use either one in either direction. In fact, the Vatanya Shina Puzzle, we said, if you make any change, if you don't do as dictated to do the tefillin al klaf mezuzah and the proper side of the leather, it's possible. So the more tefillin, that part that we said is the shina apostle is only on the tefillin. We're talking about using the tefillin, taking from a tefillin and using it for your mezuzah. The mezuzah, it's not ma'akev. In the tefillin, it's ma'akev to do the proper parchment, but on the mezuzah, it's not. But it said if you make a difference in either one of them, it's possible. They're both la. So no, they're both talking about tefillin. It means that either if you make a change on the tefillin, either using the wrong parchment, using the duchsustus instead of the klaf, or if you do it the wrong side of that parchment, meaning the tefillin is supposed to be on the outside parchment, the outside part of the skin facing inward, and instead, even if you did it on the klaf, if you did it on the outside part of the skin, but he did it facing outward, it's also going to be possible. That's going to all be ma'akev, but the mezuzah is not ma'akev in either case. Therefore, the mezuzah could be made from the tefillin, if not for the problem of merid. The Yiboy say mashina b'zeh tanoim. It could be a machlekes tanoim about whether it's ma'akev altogether. The Tanya is shina b'zeh pasul. If you don't use the proper part of the leather, it's pasul. They change all these things. Rabbi Choy Machsher Mishum Rabbi Yehuda, I think. Let's see the Aleph. Rabbi Choy Machsher Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Reb Chanina. V'Ami Lo Mishmei de Rabbi Yaakov Reb Chanina. Hamaridin Eisen. That I'm sorry. They say that the machshir, it's not going to be possible b'diavad, and that's the man Amar who said that if not for the fact that Maridin, you'd be able to change your tefillin into a mezuzah. So again, another question on this idea of taking, if you have a worn out Sefer Torah or tefillin, you reusing it as a mezuzah. If not for the fact that it would be maridin, that it would be bringing it down a notch and misusing it. V'aboy is shirted. A mezuzah needs shirted. You have to, shirted is before the cipher writes the mezuzah, he has to write lines, he has to scrape lines that he's going to write on. Amar of Minyumi Bachilki, Amar Khan Bagurya, Amar Rav, Kol mezuzah she'enim shutetes psula. If it doesn't have the lines scratched into the surface, it's possible. Rav Minyamin Bar Chilki Didei Amar Shirtet Shel Mezuzah Halacha Mishmisinai Tanohi. Rav Shimini Bar Chilki says that the Shirtet Shel Mezuzah is Halacha Mishmisinai. So the word Tanohi, it's a Machlekes Tanoim. We said two Manda Amrim, two Amoraim who said that it is required Shirtet by Mezuzah, but it's really there's a Tana that says it's not required. The Tana of Yirmiyah Mishur Rabbeinu. Tefillin umezuzos nichtava shalom and eksav. They can be written, first of all, shalom and eksav. They don't have to be written using a different tefillin umezuzah. It can't be done from memory. A Sefer Torah has to be, you have to have another Sefer Torah that you're writing from. But the tefillin umezuzah can be written from memory. They ain't shrichas shirtet, and they don't need shirtet. So we have a mandama who says that there's no need for shirtet by a mezuzah. And that mandam would say, that's our mandam who said, if not for the fact that in my reading, you'd be able to make a tefillin into mezuzah. The halacha is tefillin loy boy shirted. The halacha is that tefillin don't need shirted, and mezuzah boy shirted, and mezuzah does need shirted. And both of them can be written without a model. My timer migras gurisim, because Shema and V'hayim Shemaya, every from Jew, l'chayra knows it from saying it at least twice a day. Amar of Chalba, Anoch Hazisa l'Rav Huna, Davi Yosef Apuria the Sefer Torah Allah. Rav Chalva was sitting on a bed that a Sefer Torah was resting on that bed. The kaf la'ad l'kada ara, what he wanted was the hava. Let's look up the word the hava in the Shita. Rav Huna, the kaf kada ara v'anach ala Sefer Torah. He skips out this part that he was sitting on it, because once he sat on it, it's too late. But it says what he did was, in order to avoid sitting on it, the kaf kada ara, he turned over a container, a kli, and he put it upside down. And then he sat down on the bed. So the sheet is just changing it, that he didn't first sit on the bed and then afterwards take off the Sefer Torah. It'll be too late, but before he sat down, he turned over the kli and put the Sefer Torah. He held us also to sit on a bed that has a Sefer Torah. He says it's mutter to do so. You'll tell me the story of Rebbe Lazar that he was sitting on a bed, and he remembered there was a Sefer Torah on it. And it slipped, or he moved it, and it was sitting on the ground. So he slipped himself off, and he sat on the ground instead of sitting on the bed together with the Sefer Torah. He was so upset when he realized what happened that he was looking as if a snake bit him. So you see that he held it was also to sit on the bed together with the Sefer Torah. So over there, the Sefer Torah was on the ground, which Rashi says, Al Gabi Karka, Sefer Torah Mushlach, Dika Bizyoyni Yisrael Lekach Nitztar. Rashi says that it was on the edge of the bed toward the ground underneath him. So therefore, he felt it was like particularly disrespectful to have the Sefer Torah on a lower part and him on a higher part. Other Rishonim say different pshatim. It was mamash on the ground. Amar Yidam Shmuel, Kasva Igeres. If he wrote the Sefer, if he writes a mezuzah in the form of a letter, which Rashi says beloy shirtut, without making the lines, beloy dictate b'chaseres v'yaseres k'ig ba'alma. He wasn't careful with what was missing or what was extra. Very hard. The other Rishonim are not happy with this. Like, what's the havamina that you're missing letters and adding letters that it should be good? Psula. My timer. Where do we get that from? Ashik ksiva ksiva mi sefer. We see from the sefer. I think it's a sefer of a. It says Rashi said ksiva ksafta mamzuz is because of a sefer krisis by a get, and a get you have to have all the proper words. Amar of Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, Tala b'makal psula. If someone put his, I think the way Rashi seems to understand it is he put the mezuzah on a stick instead of attaching it to the mezuzah and attaching it to the doorpost. He just put it on a stick and he used the stick to hold it in place. He leaned it against the doorpost. It's possible. My time of b'sharecha, it has to be in your gates within the doorpost. Tanya nami tala b'makal. If you suspended your mezuzah on a stick, or shenicha achar adelas, or if you put it on the back of the door, meaning not on the inner side part of the doorpost, but on the outside part of the doorpost, sakana ve'eba mitzvah. You've entered into sakana and you were not yet to the mitzvah. So let's see the Taisus on sakana ve'eba mitzvah. So Rashi, so Taisus pirush b'kunjush kiven the asr shaloi kol chasa ein abayis have mishtama b'nei hamazikin. He says, but you would think that it's a sakana because you don't have a mezuzah protecting you. So the kasher made a tam in Cain havalei l'meima hachi akol ha'asuya shaloi kol chasa. If that's the case, why are we saying all of a sudden now it's sakana when you put it in the wrong place? All the different psulas, if you wrote it improperly or you didn't do shirtut, it should be a sakana. So Taisus has a very practical explanation. The nearer the talu makol nukuf ba'roishet lavadaite. You're going to put it on a stick. Person's going to hit his head on it because he's not expecting it to be there. Also, if you put it on the back, they go to kiss the mezuzah on the inside of the doorpost. If you have one sticking out in the back, someone's going to hit their head on it. Okay, sagt die Gemara weiter. Shall base Mumbas Hamelach, how you also be saying came when Mumbas Hamelach would go to his inn, when he'd go away and he'd go to a Goyish inn, he would put a mezuzah on a stick, zeichel mezuzah, as a zeichel for the mezuzah, which is because you don't need when you're traveling, but as a zeichel you do it, which is shver on Taisus' pshat. If you're worried about banging your head, you don't have less of a problem with banging your head when you're going to an inn. Amar Yudam Shmuel, mitzvah leinicha b'sei chalol shel Pesach. It's a mitzvah to put it inside the door frame, not on the outside part of it. So Gemara Pshita, b'sharecha Amar Achman, the Torah says to put it in your gate, which means inside the frame, inside the mezuzah. Dr. Meyer Saga Mina Hayel Amarava mitzvah leinicha b'tefach hasamach l'shusaram. Since he says that the mitzvah is to put it in the closest part to the outside, kama demerchak mali, as far out as you can make it is better. So if you put it not just on the outside tefach inside the doorpost, but if you put it facing toward the outside, it's going to protect you even better, protecting everything inside of it. Kamash malan. That's why he says no, it has to be on the inside. Kasva al shnei dafim psula. If you wrote it on two separate columns, he instead of making the mezuzah all on one piece of one column, he made it in two columns. It's possible. If you wrote it on two separate columns, and then he took those two columns and put it on the two mezuzahs, on the two opposite sides, half of them was on one side and half of it was on the other, it's possible. But if you put both parts that are in two columns, the two parshias are in two columns on the same side, on the same mezuzah, the same doorpost, would be kosher. So no, that's what it means to say is if you have it on two columns, as if you put it on two sifim, so if you put it on two doorposts and it's separated, it's not a kosher mezuzah. This is a very relevant, it happens to be relevant to us because our house that we just moved into has a living room that's attached to a dining room, which is attached to a second living room. And it's very hard to determine which room is the room that you're going. When you go up to a doorway, are you going into a room or are you going out of a room? So that's what this Gemara is trying to address. It says you go after essentially the hinge. They didn't have a regular hinge like we do, where it's attached to the doorpost and attaches to the door. But rather, they had like a hole in the ground and a hole on the top of the doorpost, and the door would be on a swivel, on a pivot that went into that hole. So you look which way the door opens. The side that the pivot is on, that's l'chayr, the side that's the inside. So you know that you put the mezuzah on the other side of the doorpost. So my hekatzir, amarvacha akavsa. The way you can determine from the pivot is the place, the hole that the pivot goes into, that the bolt that you use to hold up the door goes into. That side is the inside, and the other side is where you're supposed to put mezuzah. Where do you have this question? Meaning, when you have a door to the Rishus Harabim, you know which is the outside. So what do you have to look at this doorway for, at this pivot for? So we say like the door between two bati, which means two rooms in a house. We have in the house you have the woman's part and you have the men's part, the parlor where the men go to smoke their cigars, and you have the woman's side where they're talking about dresses, and you have a door in between them. It's hard to know which is the inside and which is the outside, so you look at where the pivot is. Reish Galusa bana beisa. The Reish Galusa built a house. Amalei Rav Nachman kavali mezusta. He said, listen, I'm building a house. These are going to be the doorposts. Put the mezuzah on the doorpost, and then we'll attach it. On Rav Nachman, tali dashi b'reisha. You have to first put up the doorpost before you put up the mezuzah. It's not considered a kliyas mezuzahs when you put up it's like a tasa v'leimin asa if you take the doorpost with the mezuzah on it and put it up. Amru Yudam Rav, asa kamin nagar psula. If he made it like a nail, that means he took the mezuzah, he made a hole, he drilled a big hole in the doorpost, and he stuck the mezuzah in lengthwise into the mezuzah. It's possible. They were made like a nail. Another thing that he said, which is not relevant now, the doorway that Rebbe used to go into the base medrash did not have a mezuzah in it. But in any case, what did we say? That he did make like a naga. We said before you couldn't. So one is where he made it like a nail and he stuck it all the way into the hole. The other one he made it like an L shape. So he stuck it in the hole, and the part that was sticking out, it was an L shape. Hey, this is the way I understand it. Was on the face of the doorpost. That's where he put the mezuzah. So in the end, it was a unique way, a creative way to attach his mezuzah, but the mezuzah was still on the outside of the doorpost. This is now we're asking on the other din that we said, that he didn't have mezuzah on the doorway he used to get into base medrash. Oh, Pescha da hava ayil bar Rav Huna lebei midrasha. The doorway that Rav Huna went in the base measure, havalo mezuzah, and it had a mezuzah. Sagt the Gemara, hahu ahu ragel hava. In that case, that was not just the door that he used; it wasn't his personal doorway that he used to get into the base measure. You think like, who would have their personal doorway? It was the strangest thing when I learned in Chaim when I was a kid. Chaim Lin had a different building, and there was a doorway right by Rav Hutner's seat, but he had to walk through the Ezes Nashim to get to it. And he would walk through the Ezes Nashim and go through it. He didn't want to walk through the Beis Medrash. He didn't want to walk through the Ezes Nashim to get to his doorway to get into his seat. So I guess this Rebbe Rav Huna was not Noilik. Rav Huna, he went through the main entrance, so that's why that's why they had a mezuzah. Damar Rav Amar Rav mezuzah halacha charaga. The gabi mezuzah, you put the mezuzah on the doorway that's normally used. Later on, we're going to ask, does that mean that you don't put on the ones that are not rag, and do you do altogether on a base medrash? Amr Zera, Amr Masna, Amr Shmuel. Mitzvah lenicha betchila slisha elyon. It's a mitzvah to put it at the beginning of the top third. My wife is very upset because my son-in-law put up all the mezuzahs, and the previous mezuzahs, the people who had been here before, I put up the mezuzahs like 6 inches higher, and he went with a tape measure, he figured out where he divided into thirds, and he put it right at the beginning of the top third. So now there's like a little empty space of the paint where the old mezuzahs were. So you have to put on the top third, on the bottom of the top third. As long as it's not within a tefach of the top or the bottom, it's kosher for mezuzah. So it could be anywhere along the whole length of the doorway. Meisvei magviyim nakarka tefach. Yehuda says, the Yehuda Tana says that could be anywhere along the doorpost, as long as it's not at the top and bottom tefach. The Dehera is makish the tefillin to the mezuzah, makshir v'goiva, just like when you put on tefillin, you do it on top of your head. Afksiva b'goiva. So too, when you put up your mezuzah, it should be on the top, all the way on the top of the doorpost. So Bishlam of Yehuda. Yehuda says like Yehuda, he said the same halacha. Level Shmuel. Shmuel was the one who said it has to be in the top third, the bottom of the top third. But Rabbi Yossi had said that it has to be. I'm sorry. Yeah, he had said it had to be on the bottom of the top third, and the Tana Rabbi Yossi said it has to be all the way on top, not in the top third. Like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi Yossi. Amar Huna Breder of Nasan, Lo'elam Rabbi Yossi. He says like Rabbi Yossi, that Rabbi Yossi had said it should be all the way in the top. Umayt Chila Shlisha Elyon Dika Amar Lachika Shalei Lachika Min HaKairish Almayla Yossi Mishlish. He's saying when you do it, when that which Rabbi Yossi said you should do it on the top, means you shouldn't do it more than it should be within the top third. You can do it even up to a third down, but it's supposed to be as high as possible. Amar Rava, mitzvah lenicha betefach hasamach l'shusarabim. You should put it in the tefach nearest to the rishusarabim, meaning all the way on the outside of the doorpost. My time up. Mezuzah miyad. They say in order that you should encounter the mezuzah right away when you come in. He said in order that it should protect you. You see how the Rebbeinu Shalom is different than a person. The Melech sits inside and his bodyguards watch him from outside. The Rebbeinu Shalom is not like that. He sits. We sit in the inside of our houses, and the Rebbeinu Shalom watches us from the mezuzah. Shenema Hashem Shemrecha Hashem Tzilcha Yad Yaminecha. The Rebbeinu Shalom watches. Hashem is our guard on on our right hand. Okay, we'll stop over here.
Thank you. Have a great
Have a
Shabbos.
good Shabbos. Shkoyach.